Here we are, back on the Denver Rio Grande Southern. We're back with the same quick drive that the original demo was done on, because there's been a patch. It's just starting to blow off. Let's get in and get this little beastie set up. That way. Open the cylinder cocks up. Let's get the brakes off. Rail driver's not playing with Train Simulator today. That's not unusual. So I'll be doing this the hard way. So what does the patch do? Well, in theory, the patch lets us drive this short, underweight consist more accurately. That's the best way to put it. I do think they might have done something with the whistle too. Oh, I think they have done something with the whistle. That's good. Now we're still blowing off, which I wouldn't expect after moving this far. Should put the HUD on so you can see what I'm doing, I guess. Ooh, that's a very short cutoff. Let's go back to about 30. It's fairly normal. She does look pretty nice in the morning sun, I'll give her that. And at the moment we're on a 2% gradient. I've got the automatic fireman on. And we aren't accelerating. Oh, that's good news. So before the patch, we just came up here like there was a rocket in the caboose. But this is a lot better. Oh, well, I'm happy. Gonna have to actually put my reverser forward. There we go, now we're picking up some speed. I have to say this is a lot more realistic. I'm still a bit concerned that we're blowing off constantly. Because you just wouldn't be. Not by now. It looks like the emissive for the red light is placed further forwards too. So that's also more realistic in that that's coming out of the ash pan. The bottom of the firebox. Possibly out through the dampers. Quite pronounced in this dark area. That's a limitation of Train Sim Classic and how you do lights though. And while we're still happily accelerating, I have to say that this is a lot more realistic. Yeah, so if I bring my cutoff back to use less steam, I start slowing down. Let's see if we can recover now. We're on the 3.2% gradient now. Yeah, this is a lot better. There you go, 49% cut off and 50% on the throttle, and I'm maintaining speed. This is so much better than what we had before. That's going to make this locomotive a lot more challenging to drive, because you're actually going to have to do just that. You're going to have to drive it. We're still able to accelerate on the 3% gradient, but that's not so unusual. This is 144 American tons, or short tons as the rest of the universe calls them, which is actually half an actual ton. So in reality this is about a 72 ton train in imperial tons. Which is actually not that far off what we operate with on the railway I'm on. So we can run 90 tons up a 30% grade. And this locomotive is probably 20% more powerful than ours. Now that the gradient's dropped down a little, I was able to throttle back a bit. I'm also able to bring my reverser back a little. There's no need to try and run this train actually at 18 miles an hour. 18 miles an hour is a speed limit. The driver would operate the locomotive in such a way as to make the timetable. And with freight, sometimes there was a timetable and sometimes they just went for it and used things like train orders. I don't actually know whether the Denver and Rio Grande Southern used timetable working or not. Being a single line railway, I would imagine they probably did. Otherwise it just would have been manifest confusion. Oh, I'm quite happy with this. On the basis of this patch, I'm prepared to change my Steam review to a thumbs up. I'd still love to see that blowing off resolved. Let's just have a look around the cab. We are still pegged on the Steam, so we've got... It's hard to actually tell what these gauges are, so I'm assuming one of them's the brake, and one of them is the steam test, which is probably the smaller one. And this is the boiler pressure, which is just pegged at 200. So I think there's still a bit of an issue on the boiler pressure front, because that seems unrealistic, that you just maintain 200 psi climbing up what has been at 3% grade and is now at 2.5% grade. Normally, if you're producing a lot of steam, as soon as you start using it when you're working hard like this, your pressure will drop well below your blow-off point, and your good fireman will be able to maintain that pressure most of the time, assuming the coal's any good and the locomotive's having a good day and your fire bars are good and your dampers aren't bent and all of the above. They've definitely done something with the whistle. That's much better. Before you could hear quite a noticeable loop in the whistle tone, but you don't now. The locomotive beat's quite satisfying. I don't think that's changed though. I think that was alright before. This route certainly is beautiful by train simulator standards. It's not a patch on reality, but it's the best you can achieve with this engine, I think. Oops, I'm slowing down again. I should pay more attention. I actually have to now. Back in the 3.2. And like before, I am able to accelerate. But not at crazy rates like I could before. So we're travelling up from Vance Junction towards Trout Lake. I'll probably take this as far as Ophir just for this video. But this is the same test trip that I did. It's not exactly the same consist because I use quick drive and they change every time. But it's a very similar consist and it is the same weight. So I think well done to John at Milepost and Mike Reddy of Smokebox for the changes to this loco. It is much more realistic now. And I will definitely be changing my review on Steam and giving it a thumbs up now. The fact that it's still blowing off, which appears to have fairly infinite steam, doesn't worry me that much, because we've got the realistic driving, and that's the most important part. Definitely some whistle changes. Patch is available on the Milepost Simulations Facebook page. I don't actually use Facebook, so getting to it was a little challenging, because I did have to coax Facebook into letting me get to the link without logging in. I'll pop a link into the patch into the description. If you're familiar with just dropping the files on top of an existing TS implementation, then the patch is for you. If you're not confident about getting the zipped up patch files and putting them in the right places, I would suggest waiting for the official one to come out. I believe it's with DTG for quality assurance currently, so it shouldn't be too long before it comes out. It usually takes a couple of weeks to get through QA. And I believe that John submitted it late last week, so shouldn't be too far off. Obviously I can't give you an exact time or a date, and Easter will get in the way, of course, because a lot of DTG, as they've already announced, is actually closing for the Easter break, which is not at all unusual for a business. And I actually respect it. I think it's really good that the developers and testers and marketing people and everybody else is going to get a bit of time off, because they do tend to have a very hectic life in trying to get all these things done. I know some of the developers won't stop because they never do. I won't name them, but they know who they are. Wish I could get a way to do smooth panning. I changed my mouse to a trackball to make it better a long time ago, and that helped, but it's still not totally smooth. I'd love to be able to do something about that. I've occasionally considered writing my own lure code to do pans with a new camera. I run RWE 2, by the way, so these tree assets are one of the ones that doesn't like RWE terribly much. Or RWE doesn't like the trees, it needs an update. Because the trees are spectacular, they're really good. And RWE needs to cope with them better without flickering. And I've noticed quite a lot of route builders are using this tree now. Including Midland Line New Zealand's got an update coming out. We are approaching the water tank at Ames. I did have a chat with John in the comments about Ames. And while I did find some, I mentioned it in the other video, I did find some historic photos that suggested that the water tank used to be at the sidings at Ames in the time that this line was set. John says that it is actually just around the corner where it is portrayed in the route. If I wanted to really test out my skills, I'd stop here at the water tank, but I'm just glancing over at the clock and it's only 7 minutes before I'm due to start work, so I won't. It'd be really cool if the distant scenery part of the engine in Train Sim Classic used the colour scheme of the near terrain and the near foliage to colour the distant terrain and the distant foliage. Start bringing our speed down for this 10-mile-an-hour limit coming up. And even after all this time of climbing, it's still blowing off, so let's just see what the steam gauge says. It's still peaked on 200, so not that happy about that, but I am very happy about the drivability of this locomotive now. It's now more of a challenge. You actually have to keep a bit of an eye on what's going on around you. Want to check how far we are from Ophir. Not all that far, so Ophir is this loop up here. Or is it this one? No, it's this one. This is the mine. Core camera always seems to give you an overhead view now. It's interesting that the put on the F4 HUD, which I rarely use. So the automatic fireman is firing. It's not putting any water in at the moment, but it is using steam, so it's below the blow-off pressure. It would appear that the fireman is constantly putting on coal. Gonna leave the cutoff alone, but I need to slow down for this trestle bridge. So now we should be blowing off. And there goes the sound for a blowing off. Amazing that the line climbs that much after Ophir. Soon this train goes up there, and that is actually realistic. It looks like something out of the model train world, but it's not. That is actually how the route is. It's a stunning example of mountain railroading. I was hoping for a nice screenshot on the trestle, but the trestle's in the dark. Never mind. You know what? We're still going to do a nice screenshot of the trestle, even though it's in the dark. Oh, I didn't realise last time that the cars actually stopped for the train. That's cool. back a bit because I have to stop very close to this crossing to get my train off the back of the last one. I go into emergency there? But I did. Alright then. Welcome to Ophir. That's as far as I'm going to take the run for this video, but I have to say I'm going to change my Steam review based on the locomotive patch. I think there's a few changes to the route as well that I noticed. So, quite cool, very responsive from John and Smokebox to get this sorted out. And I'll pop a link into the description. As I said, I think this route, I mean the route was a thumbs up before, but the loco wrecked it for me. Now I think the loco is significantly better from a driving experience. The only downside now that I've got to whine about, and it's not that big a whine, is that it blows off all the time. And it still seems to have infinite steam, but that's okay. Well, is it? Not really, but it's a heap better. I don't mind that over the improvements to the driving experience. I think that's the more important aspect of it. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope this has been useful for you, and if you were teetering on the edge of buying this or not, I would suggest that you teeter over the edge and go and buy it, because the patch has improved it quite dramatically. Alrighty, thanks heaps for watching, and thanks again to John and Smokebox for responding to community feedback and getting this sorted out. Magnificent work. See you later.